We are out of the practice session.
All right, welcome everyone. I now call this special meeting of the KCRHA Governing Committee to order. We start by grounding our work in our theory of change, which is if we create a homeless response system that centers people with lived experience, then we will be able to focus on responding to the needs and eliminating inequities in order to end homelessness for all. This is a hybrid meeting, as are all of our meetings. As of all our meetings will be going forward. So there's a physical location as well as virtual access. I want to thank Mayor Keith Scully and the City of Shoreline for letting us borrow their city today. Austin, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Member Constantine?
Here.
Member McDermott?
Here.
Member Balducci?
Here.
Member McWhorter Jr.
Here.
Member Hemphill. Member Salcedo. Member Burney.
Here.
Member Prince. Chair Prince.
Here.
Member Backus. Member Lewis.
Present.
Member Harrell.
Here.
And Member Herbold. With that, we do not have quorum, as we sit at 8 of the 9 required for quorum.
Okay.
Mayor Backus is right around the corner. I'm sure she's trying to sign in. If somebody could reach out to her, maybe she's having a problem.
I just texted her, Claudia.
Okay, great.
Since we do not have a quorum right now, we cannot approve the consent agenda. So we'll come back to that. And we'll move to the 5-year plan presentation. We have some amendments. And so before, on behalf of the governing committee, we know this work would not have been possible without CEO Mark Doan's leadership. And we want to thank CEO Doan's for their work to this region. CEO Doan's, would you like to say a few words prior to the 5-year plan discussion?
Thank you. This has been an incredible honor. And the 2 years in the role and the 5 total working with you all to craft and launch the Regional Homelessness Authority has been some of the best time in my life and in my career, also some of the most exhausting. But I fundamentally believe that this is the right level, the right approach, that our region cannot succeed at dramatically reducing unsheltered homelessness or homelessness broadly without a regional approach, and that we are on the right track, and that with the hopeful passage of the 5-year plan today, that we will have the guide rails and the path forward. I will note that to you all in particular, as the time comes to select a successor for this role, that I had to laugh seeing the Times post saying it was time to update the job description, because I haven't had a job description for 2 years. And so I will note that there's just like a lot of administrative work to do in order to make this role doable for the next person to step into it. And I'm not leaving, I'll be around. So if anyone, wants to connect around sort of the experience that I've had, any of that, I would offer that up to the governing committee. But it's been a joy, and I'm just very grateful for the time that I've been able to spend with you all. I know that you are, the agency in the region is in incredible hands with the team at the authority. You'll hear from Helen and Alexis today about the 5-year plan. I know that you all know that the 5-year plan would not have been possible without Alexis and her team's work, and they're like dogged on the ground every day connecting with people. And that That's what I'm the most proud of, right? Is that there's a team that's going to hold the work, that it actually isn't about me. And so with that, I'm done. And thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Mark. Helen, Alexis, take it away. You're on mute, Helen.
Thanks so much. I'm sorry, any issues? Can you hear me? Okay, great. I also want to thank Mark for their visionary leadership. It led to the creation of this agency and its launch. And also thanks Mark for truly challenging this community to do better in addressing the needs of our unsheltered neighbors. Now it's our job to carry the vision forward and make you, as our founding CEO, proud. Thanks. So on to the 5-year plan. This is incredibly exciting for many of us on staff and has been a long time coming. Thank you for all the time and energy you invested in developing and fine-tuning this plan. Also, I too want to especially thank our colleague Alexis Mercedes Rink for her tireless efforts to move this plan forward. Given that you've invested so much time providing detailed guidance, I'm going to focus on telling the story of our plan today. The plan's overall goal is to focus on unsheltered homelessness and bring people inside in a way that meets their needs. This overarching goal aligns well with the formal charge of the authority to oversee the crisis response system for homelessness in King County. We have to continue to come together, be better aligned and coordinated if we are to be successful in coming years. As we've shaped our plan, we have taken the time to understand the full need and scale of the issue. In 1 year, 53,000 people experience homelessness in King County. The need is much larger than we previously understood, and the system is currently not resourced to meet this need. In addition, Black and African Americans, Alaska Native American Indians, and trans and gender non-conforming people are all disproportionately represented among those experiencing homelessness. Our plan is also focused on addressing these needs within our current budget. It's important that we be honest with you about the scale of the problem and recognize that the system does not have sufficient resources to meet it. Our county has 12,644 permanent housing spaces for households experiencing homelessness, including types such as permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and vouchers. Many of these spaces are permanently full by design. In January, a one-night look into the use of our temporary housing system showed us that 6,464 people were staying in shelter, safe havens, and transitional housing. This reporting also showed us that our shelters are 91% full. We also know that the state modeling from the Department of Commerce indicates that in order to move the 53,000 people experiencing homelessness inside, we need to create 18,200 new temporary housing units by 2027. The authority manages crisis response. We are the emergency room and the last resort after every other opportunity for prevention has failed. When people show up in the emergency room, the goal is to stop the bleeding and help them stabilize. Right now, our emergency room is full, and the waiting room, our shelters, and the encampments are also full. The solution here isn't just to build a bigger waiting room, it's to improve our triage tools and move people quickly through the system into housing in a way that meets their needs. That's what the 5-year plan tries to do. Our plan is grounded in our current reality and how we can be responsible stewards of the homeless response system. The plan focuses on how we can unify and coordinate funding and policy. With this, we can develop a unified regional response and consolidate funding from homeless services from other jurisdictions. It aims to improve system-wide efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability. We want to contract to ensure consistent best practices, data collection, and reporting. Many of us have been doing this a long time, and we know what best practices are and what programs are working. We can use the contracting process to build those performance metrics into RFPs and into contracts going forward. Our plan is designed to operate within budget constraints, $253 million in 2023 and a proposed $250 million in 2024. Our system moved 5,600 households into permanent housing in 2022, an increase over the previous 2 years. This shows that our system is recovering from the impacts of COVID. We expect that number to keep increasing as we house more people this year. We know that there are new local, state, and federal investments in housing. Moving 5,600 households into permanent housing is a clear success, but without new resources, we will only make a dent in the total number of people experiencing homelessness in our region. Recall that 53,000 number. Our plan describes the work of the system on 3 levels: what's happening at the service provider level, the network of homeless services, and with regard to system connections. We have determined that if we get to a place where every service provider has what they need to succeed, our network of service providers are better connected and coordinated to better serve each individual's needs. And finally, multiple systems are working together to prevent homelessness, then we will see a decrease in homelessness in our community. As stewards of public dollars, we have a responsibility to make the most of the resources available. We will be building upon what service providers already do well, while investing in proven solutions that have the best outcomes. For example, the Mary's Place Family Shelter Intake Line and programs that are by and for our Indigenous and Black communities. We will fund the programs people want to participate in. For example, there's a lot of research supporting the use of non-congregate shelter. We will also continue to advocate for fair wages for our frontline workers. Looking at our network of homeless services, we can improve measurement and data to better match people to services while also improving system accountability. For example, we are working to develop a tool that will show real-time shelter bed availability. We will coordinate between providers to make the system more efficient while also increasing the use of federal social programs such as Medicaid and SNAP. When looking at our connection to other systems such as healthcare, education, and foster care, we can prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place. For example, currently, of the young people aging out of foster care in King County, 35% become homeless within a year. I find this a haunting statistic and believe this is a problem that must be solvable. We will also work to ensure that these systems are coordinating such that there is no wrong door, meaning no matter which system an individual enters, they're connected with the services they need. We will know we are successful when we see that we have more shelter beds and housing options. People have the services they need and can move through the system quickly. Fewer people return to living outside after shelter, and more people are permanently housed. We all recognize that there are some improvements that need to be made to the authority's operations before we can transform the system as a whole. Our immediate priority is to stabilize the agency's operations and build the infrastructure. We will still rebid the system, and that is the pathway to changing how the system operates. However, the rebid will be rolled out and operationalized over the course of the next 2 years. As these changes take effect, we anticipate being able to more effectively serve those in need of services and increase the number of people moving quickly through the system into permanent housing. I'd also like to highlight some of the key actions that will be taking place in years 1 and 2 within our existing budget. Streamlining the contracting process to ensure timely and reliable collaboration with service providers, optimizing existing funding in our current budget by restructuring and reprocuring service contracts, leveraging federal funding, including use of Medicaid funds and advocacy with federal partners for expansion of housing investments. Increasing capacity for services like outreach, shelter, and emergency housing when funding is available. Improving data and dashboards, including better information about populations disproportionately impacted. Additionally, we will be developing a real-time bed availability tool so all service providers can match people to beds faster. We'll be improving wraparound supports to people with behavioral health needs through partnership. We'll also be improving severe weather response across all the subregions and increasing support and funding for BIPOC organizations. We'll be developing programs in partnership with youth and young adults, and we will continue to refine the pilot of the Housing Command Center model of emergency management response to unsheltered homelessness. Under this plan, we're striving toward a future state where people experiencing homelessness in King County will be able to access services no matter where they live and regardless of race, age, gender, or other identity. Service providers will have real-time data that allows them to serve people faster and more effectively. And social service systems will work together to prevent homelessness. Then communities will see less unsheltered homelessness. At the Authority, we're doing our best to focus on bringing our unsheltered neighbors inside and doing so in a way that meets their needs as quickly as possible. We have a lot of work to do. We can't do this alone. Our strong base of skilled service providers who know what it takes to do this work well, they are critical. I would not be here if I didn't believe that we can, in fact, solve these challenges together. But the need is greater than ever, and it will take all of us over the coming years to be successful. It will take all of us, cities, the business community, philanthropy, providers, and advocates. We all need to come together. Again, I want to thank all of you for your engagement on the development of this plan over the last year. And once again, many thanks to our colleague, Alexis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen. Are there any questions for Helen or Alexis?
And I believe we also have Owen Capitz with us who can answer data-related questions.
I think this might be a first. No questions. That means you guys have done a really amazing job on this. All right, so we have a couple of amendments. Austin, how do we want to handle these amendments?
Yeah, so first, we want to motion 20, I just forgot the number, the initial resolution to pass the 5-year plan, which I think is 09, if I'm correct.
Okay.
And then after that, discussion, amendments, and then we'll go on from there.
All right, awesome. Do we have a motion on resolution 2023-09?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Second.
All right. Motion, it has been moved and seconded for resolution 2023-09. There are a couple of amendments. I believe amendment number 1 is by member Balducci. You're on mute, Claudia.
Thank you for all the prompts. Hi, so I move amendment 1.
I'll second.
All right,
Let me speak to it.
please.
In the original draft, let me start with the rationale. We all know that if we're going to succeed at the missions that were just so ably described by our staff to move more people inside, we're going to need more permanent housing, and at all levels of affordability, and some of it with supportive services. And creating that end state resource is not the mission of this agency, but we need that anyway in order to succeed in our mission. So one of our work plan items, deep into the list of things we plan to do in the next few years, included a section about comprehensive planning efforts at our partner cities. And the verb, it's not, the verb has gone through a number of different iterations, but it was pretty vague what was meant to be done. And then the second proposal was to align with the cities. And I think what we really want to do is engage with the cities. We should step up as an agency, advocate, speak to, work with our city partners to make sure that in their planning, with the major comprehensive plan updates coming up this year and next, they're planning for and moving forward with sufficient permanent housing to create the resource needed in order to really move the needle on homelessness. So that's the purpose of this hopefully minor amendment. Thank you. I encourage you to vote yes.
Any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, I think we can do a voice vote on this. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Our next amendment is a staff technical amendment. Who from the KCRHA team is gonna handle this one? Alexis, please.
I will happily take that up. As you will see on the screen shortly, this is an amendment to strike 2 sentences that frankly were intended to be taken out in the previous draft that was passed by the implementation board. These were some edits related to level of detail. And so you'll see in the effect statement, this was a technical revision that was intended to be incorporated in the previous draft. Truly an error of hitting reject on the track change instead of accept. And so part of the rationale for also pulling out these 2 sentences was just that it was a level of detail identified that was inconsistent with the level of detail across the rest of the draft plan. So just creating more consistency across the level of information in the document.
Thank you so much, Alexis. Anyone have any questions for Alexis on this? If not, I'll accept the motion.
I'll move amendment 2.
Second.
All right, amendment 2 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Now we are back to resolution 2023-09 as amended. Is there a motion to approve the amended resolution?
Mr. Chair, I don't believe we need.
Oh, you're
a
right, we
motion
don't.
To amend.
You're right. You're absolutely right. All right, is there any discussion on resolution 2023-09? If not, Austin, can you call the roll?
Absolutely. Member Constantine,
Aye.
member McDermott,
Aye.
member Balducci,
Aye.
member McWhorter Jr. Member McWhorter Jr., I did not record a response. I think you might have been muted.
Aye. Can you hear me?
Yes, recorded aye. Member Bernie,
Aye.
member or Chair Prince,
Aye.
member Backus,
Aye.
member Lewis,
Aye.
Member Harrell
Aye.
and Member Herbold.
Aye.
Resolution 2023-09 passes with 10 ayes, 0 nays, and no abstentions. Congratulations.
Motion carries. Congratulations, everybody. That was a lot of hard work. We should be proud of what we've been able to get done. And thank you, Alexis, and your team for all your hard work. All right, next up,
Chair, may I say one thing, please?
of course you can.
I promise you no speechifying after a good
I didn't
piece of
tell.
legislation. I do want to say again, I want to thank Mark and the staff and all of the committees and implementation board for the work that they put into this. I'm always pleased when people are providing feedback and the RHA listened to the feedback and provided a plan that we can actually get excited about. A substantive point I want to make that doesn't warrant changing the plan or even amending it, and that is when I continue to look at the plight of homelessness, I often ask, we as governmental representatives, we're going to do everything possible to try to address the issue. We're going to address it with local funds, federal funds, state funds, anywhere we can get philanthropic funds. But I also continue to ask where the entry point for everyone who cares about the problem, where their entry point is to help solve the problem. When we have our 1 day of service in Seattle, we don't do it so much that we're trying to force people to do what government should do, which is abate graffiti or things like that, or plant flowers or feed the hungry. We do it as a means to let people join in and show that they're willing to help, and we want it to be sustainable. And when I look at this plight of homelessness in our plan, I ask the question, well, where's the entry point for everyone else that want to help? I continually believe that the people out there that are warm and fed and sheltered, that they want to help as well. And so when we start to implement our plan and start to improve it, I'd encourage the drafters of the plan and the consultants we use and everyone that's vested to always think about how we can continue to get hundreds of thousands of people involved with us, because we all are blamed for our failures in addressing the unsheltered community. So I say that to say that we're all in this together, and I know there are a lot of people that want to be part of our plan. And so when we evaluate our effectiveness, let's also think about how we could join hands with so many other people that really want to help. But I'm very proud of where we're heading. I think a lot of good work results in this unanimous vote we just achieved. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Harrell. As we didn't have a quorum at the start of the meeting, go ahead, Member Herbold.
Thanks. I don't mean to take away from the good closing remarks of the mayor. When you asked for folks to speak earlier, I was waiting to see if anybody else wanted to speak. I didn't want to jump in, but I did have a couple things that I would love to get on the record, if I might. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
First, just want to thank the RHA's work with my office. You've really been so collaborative and did a lot to incorporate several of my requests. I also really want to thank you for making sure that the plan be available to the interested public, and that you posted the revised plan a week ahead of this meeting. So really, this is such a closely watched plan. I know you agree it's so important to ensure full transparency. But the thing I wanted to get on the record here is the gearing up for a system-wide rebid process later this year. I'm very supportive of the language in the plan that discusses the importance of establishing an equitable procurement process to build a proactive homelessness response system that's community and data driven. We all know it's so difficult to build up a contracting process that moves with deliberative speed. but I just really recognize that there are barriers for our contracted partners, and we want them to be able to reliably and promptly access the funds that they've been awarded. And the RHA has been tasked with building the system from scratch, has made a lot of progress towards that goal. But I'd really like to take this opportunity to advocate that the RHA not rush the planned rebid and focus on improvements to the contracting system itself. The rebid, I think, by design, will introduce a lot of uncertainty for our contracted partners who are already feeling strained by contracting delays. I really appreciate that the 5-year plan, the interlocal agreement, and contract with the city suggests that it's possible to delay the rebid until some of these fundamentals are strengthened. And I'm just again taking this opportunity to say I hope that RHA will take advantage of that to focus on contracting improvements first. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Herbold. All right, as we did not have a quorum when we started this meeting, I'm going to move back up to the top of the agenda, to the consent agenda. On our consent agenda, we only have one item. It's the approval of the April 2023 meeting minutes. There are a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Ed, you want to unmute?
Next up, Member Lewis has a couple of resolutions he wants to present to us. Member Lewis, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Chair Prince. So these resolutions were, oh, there we go. And there's going to be a screen share. Thank you so much. These resolutions I've discussed in open session for the last 2 meetings as a broad overview, and they have been distributed to governing board members for their consideration. I want to at the front thank the authority leadership, to thank Mark Dones and Jeff Sims in their collaboration on shaping these resolutions and their consultation and going through a round of edits with a number of board members, and particularly want to thank Mayor Harrell's office for the resources made available by the executive side at the City of Seattle, and my colleague, Councilmember Herbold at the city, who provided a lot of substantive additions. I'm going to talk first about this first resolution, number 2023-04, which regards the operational plan, work plan, now that we have adopted a 5-year broad plan from a high level of visibility, really focusing on giving some direction as a board to the staff of the governing authority to come back with some specific actionable items to take that 5-year plan and put the goals of it into motion in taking some very practical steps to achieve it. If the person managing the document could scroll down a little bit on the resolution. So as can be seen from reviewing this resolution, it provides a number of steps of what we are going to ask commission, or rather the staff of the authority to consider and come back and present before the end of 2023 for our approval as a board on a number of different issue areas for us to go over and see what we can do to really move forward on getting, for example, sites identified for additional shelter resource, identifying provider capacity gaps and ways that we can swiftly move to close them. And in so doing, start getting people off the street in keeping with the goals of our 5-year plan and the states of emergency that we are under as both a city and a county. So that is the high level overview this first resolution. The only other thing that I would add is that this is a good complementary set of instruction to the staff of the authority to go along with some of the sub-regional planning we've been doing in addition to the 5-year plan to try to harmonize and make consistent just the direction of how the staff of the authority is spending its time to really have the rubber meet the road on some of these priorities. So I'm happy to maybe stop there on this resolution and take questions and feedback from governing board members, as well as give some space for folks to opine on this particular resolution.
All right. Thank you so much. Angela.
Thank you so much. So thank you, Andrew, for preparing this, because my staff and the SEA staff has been really focused on the 5-year plan. We haven't had as much time to go over this resolution as we would like. And my ask would be, because I like the idea of it, if we could possibly use this as a draft opportunity, take it back to our caucuses and work through it a little bit more and work on getting something more final for the next time that we meet. That would be my ask of you right now. Like I said, I think there's some really good ideas in here, but I'd like us to have a little bit more time to think about it. Thank you.
Member Herbold, your hand's still up. I'm not sure if you have a question or not.
I'm sorry, that's a holdover hand.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
Nancy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would agree with Angela that there are some great ideas within the resolution, but I think it might be a good opportunity for us to work within our caucuses to identify perhaps if there are any things missing from this list, as opposed to supporting and voting on it today. Thank you.
Any other comments on resolution 2023-04? Yes, go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you so much, Chair Prince. I would be happy to take a more deliberative approach on this resolution, but I'm reluctant, given the urgency that I feel in the city of Seattle, and particularly in my council district, for a lot of the challenges that we're focusing on related to our homelessness response. If we do wait for the next quarterly meeting of the governing committee to consider a resolution, I'd be happy to consider an opportunity if we could have a turnaround to potentially meet sooner to ratify an operational work plan. But the goal is really to be in a position to give enough lead time to have a report back from the staff of the authority on some of the things that we're asking them to do here to operationalize some of the components of the 5-year plan that we've just discussed. But that said, if it's a reasonable amount of time in terms of the continuance to consider this resolution again, I would not be opposed to it, to allow time for some of the other caucuses to participate more robustly. I have been discussing this in open session for the last couple of sessions and been soliciting feedback, but I'm happy to continue to engage in that process if we could do it at some time in between the next scheduled meeting and this one. It looks like Councilmember Balducci has a response.
Claudia, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I think this is a really timely and good discussion. Having just sort of let the ink dry on the 5-year plan as we work on the sub-area plans, as we build into the next phase of implementation, it makes really good sense to me for this board to, within our role, have a work plan and expectations around reporting back on efforts and outcomes. And it's something we should probably do each year. We should probably make a regular routine of it at the beginning of the year, and then at the end of the year, having an annual report out. I'm not suggesting you wouldn't do more regular reporting during the year, but that would be the bookends. And so I support this. I also very much support the Mayor Bernie's suggestion to make sure that everybody has a chance to look at the details, give input into what makes sense, hear from the staff, who I imagine have been probably very fully occupied with the 5-year planning effort and other implementation ongoing work. And I have to say, I feel the urgency as well, but I don't think that it is too slow to do this work deliberatively, get it done right, and then do it over and over again and use it as a driving force for our work. So I would be comfortable taking this up at the next regular meeting, but also doing it more quickly if that's what the board wishes. Thank you.
All right. At this point, I don't want to put you on the spot, interim CEO, but what do you think about, is there an opportunity on the calendar to get a meeting in this summer? I mean, summer is really hard as far as schedules. So
thanks for asking. This group in particular is very difficult to schedule. We certainly can give it a try, but we may or may not get a quorum, especially during the summer season.
okay. All right, so we have, did you want to say anything else on the resolution, Member Lewis? On 2023-04?
No, I'm happy again to hold it. I would like to see if it might be possible to have the board meet and take action. It might be able to, like at some point in the summer, it might be able to be a shorter meeting if in that interim, the caucuses have been able to pursue potential amendment or additional substantive contribution that gets it close to a consensus. It may not be a meeting of significant length if that's the case. And I think based on the comments here today, it could probably get there. And candidly, I would love to seek the comprehensive feedback of the various caucuses that make up the governing committee as part of this. It is important to me that it be done in a time where we can get a report back before the end of 2023, just given the urgency of the work that's in front of us. Yeah, there's a lot that needs to be done, and I think I speak for the entire City of Seattle caucus here that we look forward to the opportunities for partnership with the leadership of the authority, both past and present, to really make progress on the homelessness crisis that we face in the City of Seattle. And I know that urgency is shared by all board members. So, I'm kind of crossing wires with the various regional committees that I serve on in terms of what our process is to formally go back and forth on setting a meeting. Do we kind of just agree that we'll give it a shot to try to meet in an interim time and then work that out offline? Or do I need to motion here for a date certain to come back for consideration?
I think we can defer to the interim CEO and her team, and they can try to find a date that works for all of us. Because trying to find a date during the meeting is never that fun. So I appreciate you being willing to hold it. I do appreciate that. Claudia, your hand is up. Is that a holdover, or did you want to share something else? All right, I'm going to presume that was a holdover. All right, you have a second resolution, 2023-05. You want to speak to that one?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't know if that one's going to be brought up here or not. I'll say in advance that I am similarly willing to hold consideration of this resolution. given that I anticipate probably similar comments in that respect.
Yeah.
The intent of this resolution comes out of our discussions of the previous proposed 5-year plan, which indicated a significant regional cost over 5 years to make substantial progress on confronting homelessness, where really part of the conclusion for me from that was not necessarily that the number was wrong, but that it sort of inspired among a significant constituency in the city of Seattle, at least, and I can't speak for the rest of the county, of folks who were concerned by the implication that without significant increases in resources, and that being read as a significant increase in taxes, there was unlikely to materialize a significant visible change in homelessness in King County. Part of my reaction to that, based on some work that we have done in the city of Seattle, was to recenter it that there are also some deregulatory ways to realize part of that cost, that it doesn't all have to come from revenue or investment, that there are ways to streamline, to cut process, to cut red tape, at least on the component that relates to the construction of permanent supportive housing or similar facilities, that we've pursued in the city of Seattle, and that potentially if the authority were to be advertising a price tag that significant as the ultimate price tag to curtail homelessness in 5 years, communicating that part of that price tag could be realized through deregulatory or efficiency realizing reforms might help strengthen the case for that approach or that plan. So what this resolution essentially called for was the Homelessness Authority spending some time to maybe culminate and or to collate and disseminate some of those model processes and reforms for constituent cities in King County to consider adopting if it is appropriate for that jurisdiction, and to try to quantify the potential savings, given that it fit within the 4 corners of the assumptions of the previous 4-year or 5-year plan. That we have other processes and other boards that I serve on, KCRHA, Regional Policy Committee, where we talk about similar concepts. There's been some discussion raised by fellow board members and from other regional parties about whether this would be the right role for the regional authority. I'm open to feedback on that. But my motivation is that the authority sort of opened the door by proposing the $12 billion number and the accompanying response from a lot of constituencies about the potential implications for increased taxes or increased revenue as the primary vehicle for that, and to introduce a reform cost-saving component was compelling to me as a way to try to advance bringing that number down overall and finding ways that we can all pitch in to participate in reducing the overall cost and thereby reduce the need for all those costs to be assumed by the taxpayer. So with that, Chair Prince, I'll turn it over to fellow board members and appreciate the consideration.
Thank you so much. Nancy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Member Lewis, I so appreciate your passion about this and your thoughtful resolutions. My concern on this is whether this is truly within the purview of KCRHA, and especially now having bandwidth, even if it is within the purview, is it within the bandwidth of the KCRHA staff at this time, or is this better left to another agency to work on perhaps having some common language throughout the region? I'm just not sure that this is really within the purview of the KCRHA. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Claudia? Claudia?
Yeah, I apologize. This is really difficult to do all the functions on the phone. Can you hear me okay?
No, yes, we can hear you just fine.
I'm not even going to mess with the video this time. So I did have an opportunity to speak with Councilmember Lewis, and I think this is at base a really fantastic idea, and it keeps coming up in different forums because it's a good idea, because coming up with model codes, forms of process and forms of permitting that enable quicker and cheaper deployment of temporary housing and all kinds of permanent housing. It's just a very attractive idea. We don't have any expertise at KCRHA on this kind of land use, code writing, planning, etc. You know who does have this expertise? All the cities in the county around the table. We're the ones with the code writers. And so I think that it is a very fruitful avenue that we keep. It was a recommendation, frankly, out of the Affordable Housing Task Force, and that came out in 2018. And it doesn't get off the ground for a variety of reasons that I don't want to go into in this forum, but I would love to join with any willing members of this body to figure out where we go with this energy and get it launched. We don't have the expertise here at all. And it's part of it is, outside our scope. I mean, figuring out how to build permanent housing is just strictly outside our scope. Figuring how to build temporary housing is sort of in a grayer area, but I think we should do all of that. And I couldn't support it more, but I do think we need to find the right place if this is going to be a successful thing that we try to do together. So I couldn't support this resolution here at KCRHA, but I fully support trying to launch this concept in an appropriate place. And I'm willing to put time and energy of my office into helping to do that.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Lisa?
Thanks. Again, Councilmember Lewis, I really appreciate you developing this resolution as well as the earlier one. Understand that the deliverables in this resolution may seem to be maybe not outside of scope for our consideration as policymakers in all of our individual jurisdictions. And I'm always really eager to learn from other jurisdictions, but I do understand that perhaps the issue is that the King County RHA staff don't have the expertise in some of the areas in this resolution. But I do really believe that this is work that we need to gather in a comprehensive way. So that we can come up with a work plan that we all agree on, that we can again take back to our respective jurisdictions. Some of these sort of aspirational policies that are, I think, contemplated in this resolution will require action on the behalf of each of our jurisdictions, legislative action, budget action, and to the extent that we can use this forum as an organizing infrastructure to facilitate that happening, I think the King County RHA is the right place. And so I'm wondering, are there does the RHA have consultant dollars that could be utilized to fulfill the deliverables in a resolution like this, if there isn't the particular subject matter expertise at King County RHA? But I just really think that it is very critical that we work together collectively to learn what are model policies that can drive down the cost of housing, and that by learning, working on getting this information together collectively, learning collectively, we will be more in line in each of our regional jurisdictions to put some of this stuff into action that will benefit the goals and the objectives of the King County RHA. So I just think that this is so important. I really want to find a way to do it.
Thank you, Angela.
quickly, I also agree that this has been a challenge for cities to put all these pieces together. It's a huge challenge for all of us. I don't think that the Regional Homeless Authority is the right place for this, but I do think that as regional leaders that we could probably find a space either through King County or PSRC where this kind of work should be happening. And I do think we need to bring in our federal partners as well. And I'll leave it at that. There's a lot of work to be done in this. I just don't think this is the right location for it. But I do think that this is an area that we need to make some movement to finding some solutions.
Thank you so much. Andrew.
Here, I'll be the last one in. Go to
All right. Joe, go ahead.
Thank you, Ed. I would concur with much of what Angela just said, that I think this body of work is important, but I really don't believe that KCRHA is the right place for it. The agency doesn't have the code writers, doesn't have this capability. They work with providers and engaging the community, not writing the code. So while the model codes and advice might be really beneficial, it should be done elsewhere.
All right, Andrew, you're up.
Thank you so much, Chairman Prince. I have heard the resounding feedback endorsing this resolution in the strongest possible terms in some other forum. So I do look forward to working with fellow regional leaders to figure out the best way to promulgate these reforms. One resource I would put for the benefit of the regional leadership gathered here, but also for the viewing public, is that a lot of these ideas within this document that inspired an ordinance that I sponsored 2 years ago were originally promulgated by the Third Door Coalition, and those resources are available online for jurisdictions that are interested in taking a look at some of the code revisions and streamlining that they have recommended. That's a coalition of service providers and small business owners who rolled up their sleeves to really try to figure something out here to get something done. So, what I would just say to this, I've heard a lot of comments that this isn't necessarily within the four corners of the mandate of the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. I don't necessarily disagree, although over the past couple of years, it has sometimes been unclear exactly what is and isn't considered to be part of the jurisdiction or the appropriate policy to be pursued by the KCRHA. Also, as I said earlier, I do believe that some of the assumptions made in the previous 5-year plan proposal did open the door to the KCRHA at least being dipping their toes in the water of this particular issue area in terms of forecasting the costs associated with this kind of housing and how it would influence solving regional homelessness. I understand that we are now approving a different 5-year plan based on different assumptions and a different strategy. But I do think if we are going to be discussing with the general public in this forum what the costs associated with actually solving regional homelessness are, it behooves us not just to talk in terms of federal reimbursement and taxation, but also in terms of the fundamental cost drivers and ways that we can be more efficient at reforming them. If something that touches on it this heavily is not appropriate here, happy to consider it and introduce it into one of the other regional boards I'm privileged to serve on. And I look forward to following up with board members here who I also serve with on those bodies with. In terms of pursuing the most appropriate way to do this. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and hold back on this particular resolution and continue to deliberate on other ways to advance the reforms within it.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I appreciate that. We are at the end of our agenda for today. Before we adjourn or have a motion to adjourn, I again just want to thank our CEO, Mark Dones, for all the work he did helping stand up this agency and wish him well in whatever he decides to do next. If they decide to do next, I know they will do a fantastic job. I want to thank all of you for a productive meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, guys. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.